Hello all, welcome to another quick learning. Today we're going back to CodeSignal, working on the database SQL coding exercises. If you're joining this in the middle of a playlist, I'll put a link in the description below so you can start from the first video if you wish. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go to the Arcade Databases, and then we're getting through quite a lot here. We're on Express Your Creativity, number 70, Customer Messages. Alright, so you recently added feedback functionality to the small web service you own. You were able to handle everything manually at first, but the amount of messages you receive now is overwhelming. As such, you've decided to start generating generic responses automatically. All customer names are stored in the table customers with the following structure: ID, and then the name of the customer. Customer's name is stored in the following format, so you've got a first name with a space in between the last name. Our first and last names can contain both uppercase and lowercase English letters. Your task is to write a function that given the customer's name, will return the following message. So dear, insert first name, space, last name. We received your message and we'll process blah, 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 blah. Here, first name and last name are the first and the last names of the customer, with the first letter in uppercase and with all other letters in lowercase. Alright, so here's an example of what you have. You can see they're not consistent with the upper and lower cases. In this case, the first name is all uppercase, and then in the second name you've got all uppercase except for the second letter here, which is an A. So what they want is just the first letter in the first and last name to be uppercase, and then everything else in lowercase. So what you would get is dear John Galt, and then this text that you see from above, and the same thing here. Alright, so how would we do this? So this is one way you could do this. So first thing we're going to do is declare a first name and a last name variable. We're going to set it as a type of varchar with 40 characters. We're assuming that the first and last name won't be more than 40 characters. Otherwise, it might blow up, or at least have an error that we didn't anticipate. And then we're going to set this first name. You remember to put semicolons after these declare statements. And then we're going to set the first name equal to substring. So we're going to take the name. You can see in this create function, it's giving us an argument of name that's going to be varchar 40. So that's why we can do first and last name that are 40 characters long. And so we're taking that name, we're looking at where the space occurs, and then we're going to take the first part of that name. So you see here you've got John Galt, so it's going to find that space, and it's only going to take the first thing before any spaces. And then the last name is going to look at this, and because it's -1, it's going to start from the right, and it's going to take the first one from the right after a space. So in this one, John would be stored in the first name, and Galt will be stored in the last name, and Sandy and Cohen. So if you had someone who had a three-part name like Aaron von Winkle or something, then in this case, first name would be stored as Aaron, and the last name would be stored as Winkle, and you would lose this von part. And then we're going to set the first name so we're going to concatenate, so we're going to take these different strings and put them together. That's what concatenate means. First thing we're going to do is we're going to use the upper function, and then we're going to use the substring function. So it's going to go to the first name, and it's going to look for the first character, and it's going to take one character in length. So it's going to go this first letter here, John, and it's going to give it an uppercase. In this case, it's already got an uppercase, but that doesn't matter. And then it's going to go lowercase for using the same substring function, on the first name, and it's going to start at 2, and since we didn't specify a second argument, it's going to go all the way to the end. Or actually, I should be more specific. It's going to be like that. So OHN on John would be lowercase. So just making sure that we have the proper cases on the first name here. And we're doing the same thing with the last name, making sure the first letter is uppercase and the rest is lowercase. And we need semicolons after all these set statements. And then we're going to return, so you can do that with a function. You're going to return something, and we're going to return concatenation. So we're going to put some strings together. So we're going to put in dear, just like it says up here. They want dear, and then a space, and then we're going to put in the first name that we get from what we declared up here. And then we're going to put in a space, and then we're going to do the last name, and then we're going to put in the rest of this text that they want. So it's going to be personalized when you run this function. It's going to put in the first and last name for whatever name you put into this function. And then this last procedure just runs against the customers table. It does the ID, name, and then it calls this function response and uses the name from each row in the table to populate that. So you'll get what you'll see here. So you got the ID, name, and then the response is created using this function. All right, I hope you guys are able to follow along with that, and you're seeing functions for the first time, I think, in this tutorial. So if you've seen functions before, it's pretty similar. So you create a function. Also, they drop the function if it already exists here, and then you do a function. You have arguments that get put into the function, and it will return something. This tells you what data type it's going to return, and deterministic just means it will always return the same thing given the same outputs. All right. Hope you guys join me for future videos. Thank you very much.